The following presentation was recorded live in Los Angeles, California for the 24th Annual Convention of the International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape 25, Voice 4, Critique Session.
Okay, I'm Arden Hopkin. We're now in the afternoon session of Tuesday. This is Voice Critique. We've got a number of people who sent in volunteer forms, and 3 of you are here, and then the remainder are going to come from the audience at large. Those of you that attended the session this morning noted that we started out talking about the people who are actually being critiqued, but then tried to go on further to talk about what it was that they were doing and that changed their voice for the better, so that if you have similar needs, you can take advantage of those needs and even act as if you'd just gotten critiqued yourselves. I just want to say it's been good. It's been good to be involved with y'all. I didn't think much of my sessions yesterday. I think the presenter was a little off the beam. But the session this morning was pretty good. When we actually got down to making some music, I could say, yeah, this is worth time. And I hope that the same thing will be true this afternoon for you as you hear these people sing and then try to figure out what it is that's working for them, what things can be adjusted in a short, quick fix to make it sound better, make it turn out better. Let's go ahead and, what I'd like to ask is that all 3 of you, whose papers I have, sing one right after the other. So, Don, and since the record is repetitive, I'm only interested in the first portion of it where the singing call occurs. Maybe take it through to the first bridge or to the first break or where your repetitions come in. When the melody starts to repeat itself, we'll stop in the interest of time because it'll be the same thing for the second verse and the third verse and so on and so on. So if each 3 of you, Jeanette and Jeff and Don, would do your thing, then I'll take notes on them, we'll work them through, and then we'll try and open it up for the rest. Now, Don and I had an advantage or a disadvantage. I don't know from Don's point of view which it is. When we found out he was going to be doing this, we got talking at dinner last night, and I said, "Oh, Don, I got something I can help you with." And I went on about my dinner, and about 45 minutes later, he leaned over and punched me and says, "Well, you're going to leave me in suspense or not? You're going to tell me?" So I got a little head start with Don last night, but we'll carry on from where we left off last night.
Four ladies chained across the ring you go. Roll away and circle left, you know. Roll away and circle left, and then left element and weave the ring. See the pyramids along the Nile. Swing your girl and promenade with style. Just remember, darling, all the while you belong to me.
I borrowed that from Bill Herman. Now let's take it back to him.
Circle left. It's early Sunday morning and the sun is coming up. I'm headed for the golf course, man. I'm ready to try my luck. Left alley man, the corner girl, do sa do. You alley man, the corner weave around the ring. You know you straighten that left elbow and slightly bend your knees. Swing the lady promenade, please. You help me keep my head down and save me from the double bogey blues. The hips square through and count on 4-hand, you know. You make a right-hand star and roll it, you know. Well, the head star left and side around, you know. Same to the right or left through. You turn the dial and now you roll away. You pass through, you turn back. You swing the lady there, a promenade like that. You help me keep my head down and save me from the double bogey blues. Glad that's over. Yeah.
hysterical. Side face, grand square. Split splash, I was taking a bath. Long about Saturday night. Rubber dub, splashing in the tub, and thinking everything was alright. Four ladies promenade inside a ring. Swing that van and promenade her again. It's a split splash just for taking a bath. How was I to know there was a party going on? Head promenade and travel halfway in there. Walking and square through four. Go all the way and then a right and left through. Wheel left and throw it, wheel and down. Square through and roll it, three hands around. Swing that corner girl and promenade on down. It's a split splash just for taking a bath. How was I to know there was a party going on?
I want to say to them and to each of the rest of you that are going to have the chance to get up there that it takes a good deal of courage to open up to that, and I applaud them. It's more difficult to have to stand here and look in the whites of your eyes than it is to have me sitting in there listening to them. Now I know that's true, so it takes a good deal of courage to do that. Well, as I listened, I thought that there was two things that I could say to Jeff and Jeanette because they share similar challenges. And then the challenge that Dawn faces is different than the ones that they face. So let me start with Dawn, and then we'll come back over to Jeff and Jeanette. So Dawn, come on up here. Dawn has a tone quality that's very, very warm, very friendly. He kind of gives warm fuzzies with his voice. And that's kind of nice, but there are times when he wishes that his wife would do what he tells her to do, and he needs a little more command in his voice. And he'd like to figure out how to accomplish that. There were two things that I heard that could make change to that. First of all, when you hear somebody whose voice is nice and warm and friendly, it's an indication that their voice box is really relaxed. But if it's lacking in a focus or an intensity quality to it, there's a chance that there isn't enough breath support going on. Let me show you what this works like. Those of you there this morning will see how this works. So I want you to just sigh in an easy, normal, friendly fashion. There's lots of breath. You can hear the breath escaping. So you'd surmise to begin with that there's too much breath there. But in truth, there isn't enough breath there, and that's why it sounds breathy. What I mean by that is that there's a law of physics having to do with aerodynamics that says when you put air in motion, it creates low pressure around it, and therefore causes a suction. So as the air comes up out of your lungs, up through your trachea, it passes up through the opening between your vocal folds, and just below there's a little membrane that funnels the air, channels the airstream into a tighter pocket. And as that airstream is channeled and funneled into a very tight and narrow strip, the molecules speed up significantly. And as they speed up significantly, they create a higher degree of suction. God just made us that way to make sound, singing, talking, easier to do. And when you have a sufficient amount of suction going on, the vocal cords will get sucked closed and you'll get a very efficient sound. If you're below that level, then there will be breath leakage. It's very similar to having the minimum thrust level for a jet airplane at 250 miles an hour. And if you're running along at 230 miles an hour, the plane will never take off. But you've got to hit that minimum energy level that'll give the lift sufficient to lift the plane off. And the same thing happens in your throat. And most of us sing below that minimum threshold line. Now let's do a little experiment and see if this is true for Don. You give us that sign quality again, just like you did. But the next time you do it, and you're going to do it 4 times in a row, and each time you do it, you're going to add more breath by at least 10 or so %. Okay? So, I mean, we don't calibrate our breath in that way, but you want a significant increase in breath flow. So here you go. Now. Your sound's starting to come in. Come on, we're going to get your string going.
That's 4 times.
Now, there's another thing that's supposed to happen there. And one of the things that's happening with Don is I'm going to have to hold my hands up, and the people on the tape can't get this. But let's just imagine that we've blown up the space between Don's vocal folds, and that it's about that wide. So when he starts out, he's got enough of a stream of air to make it breathy. So what he does now, without realizing he's doing it, is that he increases the airstream, but he also opens the distance. And so that then compounds it. And what you got to do, Don, is to keep the feelings in your throat identical to what they were when they were first breathy. So you start out, ah, ah, ah. You hear what's happening? All I'm doing is just increasing the airstream until there's enough suction for my vocal folds to close. The nice thing about that is that when I do that, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't take any extra effort at all in your throat. There's no muscle constriction going on in your throat. And most of you folks, at one time or another, have felt what it feels like to have muscle constriction in your throat. It's like you're fighting over an obstacle. And the best thing to do is just not put the obstacle there to begin with. Now let's try this again. Now you gotta leave your voice so that it's prepared to sound. You're getting right ready to sing. And it really doesn't have anything to do with it's cold. It has to do with, I don't know what I'm doing. Now pitch it up higher. Okay, a little higher than that. We'll choose that our pitch. Now make that real breathy.
Breathy?
Keep that, now add more air. You hear it clean up all of a sudden? Now keep adding more air. Now all of a sudden his throat's nice, easy, and relaxed, and the quality of the sound that's coming out of his voice is significantly clearer than it was a moment ago. So just by changing the airstream, he gets immediate reaction from that. So now go back and sing a phrase of your song, but do it from the standpoint of adding about 25 or 30% more air than you normally think should be there.
Oh.
You don't even need the record, just sing the tune.
4 ladies chain across the ring you go. Roll away and circle left, you know. Roll away and circle left, and then...
Hang on, when he started to go down low, he started to go away from that. Let me explain what happens. If you've got... There are about 4 muscle sets that are involved in closing your vocal cords and getting them ready to vibrate. They're little things and they coordinate well together, hopefully. Sometimes they don't. But what ends up happening is that if my fingers now represent my vocal cords, if there's some muscles and fibers embedded right in the vocal folds themselves, and then there's some other muscles that swing them open and closed, as I'm showing you with my hands. Okay, now if the vocal folds himself and the muscles inside there are tense, then when it comes time for the air pressure from underneath to be enough so that they come apart, those muscles are going to be stiff. And so they're going to open, sure enough, to let the air stream through, but they're not going to open very far because they're tight. Loudness, intensity in singing, comes from how wide open your vocal folds pop. So if you got nice, easy, relaxed, flappy vocal cords, and you get a nice stream, they're going to pop wide open, and then they'll snap shut. And they'll pop open, and they'll snap shut, but they'll pop wide. And so you'll end up with greater intensity through no muscle action of your own, by reducing muscle action, as a matter of fact. And you notice, when he was up in that upper middle, he was doing really good. And then he came down into that low range, and he started to bear down upon it that way. And immediately, the freedom of the sound diminished. So here we go one more time. Just keep that stream of air constant, even as you go down low.
4 ladies chain across the ring you go. Roll away and circle left, you know. Roll away and circle left, and then left element and weave the ring.
Now that last one was the best of all. And that's exactly the thing that he said. You didn't hear him, and he said, I think I'm running out of air. And in truth, what you're dealing with is that you've got 30% or so more air passing through your throat. That isn't a significant problem for square dance callers whose phraseology doesn't ever go but more than about 5 or 6 seconds. If you were trying to go 10 or 15 seconds and you had a 30% drop, then you'd be in trouble. But you just got to get used to it. And part of what Don's reacting to is that he's used to having a sense of control here in his throat. You loosen that vocal valve, and all of a sudden, who's going to keep the sound, the air from getting away? Well, you don't need to worry about it. You live with it for a while, and it gets real normal and natural. Okay, one more time through, and then we're going to shift our gear to another element that'll help.
I'm not sure what to do now.
This thing that I'm doing with my hand, it doesn't mean he's crazy. It just means that you want to imagine that I got a little pinwheel sitting here on my finger, and you blow on it, and it goes, and then I'm turning it around, and you want to imagine that there's this little pinwheel sitting at the top of your throat, and that the breath coming up out of your throat is making that pinwheel spin around. That's what this little finger gesture I'm doing. It's nothing rude or obscene.
Four ladies chain across the ring you go.
Now, I'd agree with, I think you guys would say that sounds pretty good. It's nice, it's still Don, it's still friendly, it's still easy, but it's got a little bit of oomph in it now.
Roll away and circle left, you know. Roll away and circle left, and then left element and weave the ring.
Now, all of a sudden, all through the whole range, he's got a nice, even quality. So that one thing is probably the most significant thing that y'all can do to make your singing easier. Just blow some breeze. Just get it in motion and keep it in motion. And know that there are some laws of aerodynamics that are working in your favor. Now, the other one was what we were doing at the dinner table the other night. And that is, American English has a great propensity to be spoken very darkly inside the mouth. And if I had some cutaway pictures of what the throat looks like, I could show you how if your tongue starts to draw back in your mouth, it'll block up the sound, and it won't make it as crystal clear and as penetrating as it would be otherwise. I'll give you some examples if I can. Right now, I'm talking with my tongue drawn back in my throat a little bit, and it's nice and warm and kind of fuzzy and friendly, but it doesn't have any clarity to it. And now I'm just moving my tongue out of my throat, and you can hear that there's a little ping in my voice, a little bit of projectability, so that even if I wanted to come off microphone, you would be able to hear that perfectly well, clear to the back of the room. Whereas if I take the microphone away and I take that muffled quality, then it's a little harder to carry into the back of the room. When people have something that they really want to say, a wife to a husband who's coming in late, or a husband to a wife who has overspent the checking account, something like that, when you've got somebody that's got something they really want to say, they know how to put that quality in their voice because it's their way of saying, you better listen to me, this is important. And it's just part of the way that we talk to each other. Certainly, that's the mood that a square dance caller wants to give to his dancers. You better listen to me, this is important, instead of, oh, well, if you think it's all right and you're not busy doing something else, would you maybe Alabama left? But if you don't want to, that's all right, too. That's not the way you keep control. So right in the quality of the tone that you make, you can make that sound happen. Now, Don and I got started on this last night, and I'm going to make him do a couple of vowels. He was tinkering around with it, and I'm going to make him say the vowel E in two different ways. One, the way most Americans do it, and the way another way is the way the Mediterranean countries say it. So he's first going to say, please.
Please.
Now listen to that quality.
Please.
You identify that's still Don Williamson. But as I asked Don last night, what's your tongue doing? He said, I don't know. But as he started to look at it a little bit more carefully, he realized that his tongue draws back in his mouth just ever so slightly, and it spreads out between his molars. You all try that and see if that's not so. Please. That's the way we Americans say an E vowel. But what happens is in so doing, your tongue draws back, stiffens, blocks, and blocks out that sound. Now, I want you to do what you did last night, and that is to say the Italian word pizza. It's the only word I can think of that's been adopted into our language readily. We all know it, and we say it pretty much the way the Italians do.
Pizza.
Elongate the E.
Pizza.
Again.
Pizza.
Now, I don't know if you can tell what's going on, but when he goes, pizza, there's a brilliant quality, a high frequency that comes into his voice that penetrates and gives greater command to it. When he says, please, his tongue draws back and filters that high frequency out of his voice, and it sounds muffled. So he also knows, now, describe to them what it feels like where your tongue goes when you say that.
What it feels like?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can describe it yet.
I'll do it.
I have trouble keeping up with my tongue. I'm trying to do...
Apostle Paul did say it was an unruly member.
But, I mean, I have known this for a long time about the high-frequency business, and that's what got us into this, what I call high-frequency.
And I call it the same.
The tone quality that makes solo singing so pretty, you know. I've been lacking in that, so this is interesting to me. But what did you want me to do?
I wanted you to tell them what your tongue was doing, and you said you couldn't do it. But I'm going to get you all to try it.
Pizza. Pizza.
You all try that. Pizza. Elongate it. Pizza. Now examine what your tongue does. And if your tongue's like mine, it rolls up in my mouth. It stays right behind my front teeth, and you can feel it sort of up against your teeth, right behind your eye teeth, right? In other words, it's significantly more forward in your mouth than when you say the word please, by maybe an inch.
Your lower teeth.
Yeah, the tongue stays behind the front teeth, in the front, but it rolls up so that the sides touch the upper teeth sort of toward the front of the mouth. By doing that, if I'm going to hold my hand up, my right hand represents my front teeth, my left hand represents my tongue. When I say pizza the way that, or say please the way Americans do, my tongue and your tongue has a tendency to draw backwards and spread out. Now look right here at my wrist, and if that's where your throat is, you can see that your tongue is already down your throat a little ways, blocking out that sound that's coming out of your throat. On the other hand, if your tongue rolls forward like this, rolls up, then this spot back here where my wrist is forward, drawn out of the throat, and therefore leaving the throat open to vibrate more freely. Listen to the difference. Please, pizza. Okay, you can hear that. One of them has a bite, an edge to it, that is acoustical. It's not muscular. There's no tension in it. It's just keeping track. So now, you're going to find that. Remember, to get the best results of this, you have to open your mouth wide enough. He's used to holding a razor blade between his teeth, and he's hard to let his mouth open up enough to make any difference.
What do we say now? Pizza?
Pizza with your mouth open.
Pizza.
But your mouth's got to be open enough to get one of those pieces of pizza in there.
Pizza.
Now, there was more energy there, wasn't there? And it wasn't just because he was doing it louder. He was getting more acoustical bang for his buck there.
Pizza.
Now, the hardest vowel in the English language is the oo vowel. It's the most muffled. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Everybody say the word shoe. Shoe. And you can hear there's a hollowness. Your tongue draws back again. Now, if you can figure out how to say the oo vowel without it drawing back, you can pretty much lick any vowel in our language. So I'm going to ask Don to match the E and the oo together. And he'll note that he doesn't have to move his mouth, his jaw, at all. E-oo, E-oo, E-oo. It's just using your lips. And there's a little bit of change in the blade of your tongue. It arches forward on the E, and the middle of it sort of raises up on the oo. But it doesn't go back and forth in your mouth. Try it.
E-oo, 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 E-oo.
You notice when he first started, they didn't match at all. E-oo, E-oo, E. And the longer he went, the more they started to kind of find a common ground.
E-oo, 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 E-oo.
Now he's got it figured out. I'm going to ask him to stop on the U vowel. And you listen and see if it sounds like a U. And you feel and see if it feels like a U vowel.
Am I supposed to say ooh or you?
E-oo, E-oo.
Ew. Ew, ew, ew.
Does that sound like a U? Ooh, shoo. Does it feel like a U?
Feels like an ooh.
Well, that's true. You're right.
Ew, 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 ew. Well, you don't want to say ew.
Without that, I don't want the Y in there at all. Just EU.
Ew, 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 ew.
Does that feel normal?
Not really. I could probably learn to do it, but it'd take a while.
It sits up front in your mouth much more than you're used to it, isn't it? And you can hear.
Coming from you call for 38 years with, from right there, and I guess you get lazy or something.
No, it's just normal with our language. Non-callers have the same problem. It's just part of American English. American English is one of the most throaty languages in the Western world. We don't know it because it's our language, but in comparison to other languages, it's real throaty. And that means that our tongues are generally drawn back to hold it back in our throat, and that sound muffles out. Those high frequencies in a human voice stem from right down here in the larynx. That right where your vocal cords come, just above there, there's a little pocket, a little chamber, maybe 3/4 of an inch high, maybe less, and about a ½ inch wide. It's a little chamber, and it picks up the real high frequencies that come out of the human voice and amplifies them. And that's where that high frequency in a good projected voice comes from. And it's there in every human voice except for the voices where the tongue draws back and blocks it. The tongue serves kind of like a pillow, and it muffles the sound out. Okay, now, there's more to this whole drill. He'd have to go through and figure out how to do all of the vowels. But basically, he's going to try to simplify this thing. Would you just say E-A, E-A?
E-A, E-A, E-A.
We got to get back to the pizza E's, right? It's gone back the other way. E, E,
E, P,
E-A.
E-A, E-A, E-A.
Now, you see him trying two different strategies. The first one is E-A, 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 E-A. His jaw doesn't move at all, and his tongue does. It goes E-A, 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 and every time it goes A, his tongue goes back and blocks that thing off. Or he can go E-A, 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 and leave his tongue flat alone and just drop his mouth open. He knows that, and he's trying to figure out which of those things I want him to do. Now you listen to that, and there's clarity in that. And then you go, E-A, E-A. He's having a harder time with that one. You can see him trying to open his mouth, and it doesn't want to open. E-A. You got to be able to get two fingers.
Keep my tongue up there on my teeth.
That's a good sign. Now keep that there and drop your jaw open too. Ha. Whoa.
Ha.
That's right. That's clear. That has that ringing quality starting to come in there, and it's no big deal. It's just an acoustical game you play. Now go back. You know what that feels like a little bit? That it's a little more brash. It's a little more forward in your face. And Don was saying, yeah, but that's not my personality. My personality is to be a nice guy, not a hard nose. But it hasn't anything to do with personality. It has to do with whether or not your voice comes out. Okay, so go back and do just a little portion of that call, trying to hold on to this notion.
Call?
Yeah.
Four ladies chain across the ring. You go. Now, I can't keep my tongue still and do that.
Well, your tongue does indeed have to move around to go up and say D's and T's and other things. Open up your mouth, and when it comes time to sing in the vowel, get your tongue back down where it belongs.
Four ladies chain across the ring you go. Roll away and circle left, you know.
Now, did you hear him back off of that? And you got to the word left, you know.
Left, you know.
No, not left, you know, but left, you know.
Left, you know.
There. Keep going.
Roll away and circle left and then.
Whoops. Left and.
Left and then. Left element and weave the ring.
Okay, now you can hear that. That's a combination of getting an airstream going and then starting to play around with this 7.5-inch tube that comes from the top of your throat, top of your larynx, out to your lips. It's just a magical little space. It's got a space behind the tongue that warms the tone, a space in front of the tongue that brightens the tone, and then yet again higher than that is this highest frequency that's the penetration, the ringing quality, the focusing quality of a voice. And it happens way down low, right where the sound is first created, and it'll come out every time if you just get out of the way. I know Don's got to run, and we took longer than we were supposed to, but I wanted to show you those two things. Thanks, Don, very much.
How do we fix that now? I work with callers that I need to be able to help them with this thing, too, as well as my own self. What can we do to fix it, or can it be fixed?
You betcha it can. It sure can be fixed. The first thing you want to do, the airstream, that you can keep track of yourself, can't you? The second thing, having to do with the vowels, it requires somebody else listening saying, that one got muffled over, that one didn't get muffled over. And actually, I didn't go all the way through the whole explanation. There's a whole routine of training vowels so that they become second nature to you. Basically, very quickly, E and U match because you don't have to move your jaw. E-U, 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 O and A, O-A, O-A, O-A. You don't have to move your jaw, just your lips and your tongue. But between E and A, your jaw has to slack, and A and A, your jaw has to slack. U and O, your jaw has to slack. And if it doesn't slack, then your tongue's going to have to go to extra effort to make the adjustments necessary to compensate for that lack of drop, and then you'll swallow the tone. I mean, in basic principle, that's the answer. Thank you. Okay, let's get you two folks back up here now. Both of these guys had songs that they sang in relatively limited range, right? We're going to go back, and we're going to have Jeanette sing hers just for a second here, just to remind you. This is the Splish Splash.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath along about Saturday night. Rub-a-dub, splashing in the tub, thinking everything was all right.
And it's right there, thinking everything was all right, is about the highest that she has to go. And you could feel, Jeanette could feel that at that moment she felt a little more fragile in her voice, a little less secure. She was much happier when she said, "Splish, splash, I was, oh, I'm feeling nice and warm and easy, taking a bath, all about a Saturday night." Ooh. And then she gets up in that upper range, and she sort of squeaks and presses on it. Is that not true, Jeanette? Okay, and Jeff?
Well, it's early Sunday morning and the sun is coming up. I'm headed for the golf course. Well, I'm ready to try my luck.
And there's that same problem right there where it has to jump up into a new range. You guys have heard me say this, but your voice has very variable shifts in it. It has several regions, several registers is what singers call them. Several gears would be just as good an image. And what you want to do is to turn your voice into an automatic transmission instead of a standard shift. You know, the implication in that is that when you're in an automatic transmission, the pressure just builds up and it just flips over into that new gear without you doing anything conscious to it. Whereas with a standard shift, you have to go through all kinds of rigmarole of putting the clutches and shifting the gear and letting the clutch out, and away you go. And so sometimes, if you're only going to be there for a few minutes, you don't change your gear, you just rev the gas and it scoots on up in there. But you all know what it feels like to be in first gear at 45 miles an hour. You don't want to stay at that way for very long, or you're going to leave your transmission laying on the side of the road. By the same token, you don't want to do that very often. You're going to leave your transmission sitting on the side of the road over here and be defective. So what you want to do is to move over toward a smoother shift. And this airstream that I was talking about, making the sound prettier and stronger, it's also the lubricant that allows for those shifts to take place easily. One of the axioms is, if you've got a good airstream, those shifts will happen easier than if the airstream is not. Let's run these guys through a couple of tests. I want you both to go first, yeah. That's a pretty aggressive truck, wouldn't you say? Let's just blubber a little bit. Motorboating. He's speedboating. And on up. And you noticed what happened. His lips wouldn't buzz anymore. And they don't buzz for a very important reason. And that is that the vocal cords, knowing that they got to go high, they clamp down. And when they clamp down, they cut down on the airstream so there's not enough air, not enough breeze there to make his lips flap. And so if he's wanting to check himself to see if he's reducing his airstream inadvertently, that lip buzz is an excellent way to do it. Try it again. Yeah, he made compensation, kept it going, didn't he? One more time. You can hear two shifts. Right? That is, there's a low voice and a high voice. Like that. He's getting that. And on up. You know, when you go up in that falsetto range, your lips stop vibrating. That said, your throat clamped down on you. Now listen to me do it. Just see if you can do that easy. You feel that area that starts to feel falsetto? And there's a big breakover point, right? Just back off. Keep your air streaming and see if that'll gentle out. Okay, now that sound that's up on the high side of that, that's the sound that you want to be able to go to when you're singing your tune. Now you go, I'm just lip buzzing on the tune. And it stopped buzzing, didn't it? Can you do that? He's getting it. Now he's got it. Okay, all he's done by trial and error is backed off the tension in his throat, and that therefore you notice his lips are buzzing freely too. That means that he's not cutting his stream off. Sun gonna shine.
Sun gonna shine.
Hear it? He just shifted a gear. He'd moved his voice into an automatic transmission, kind of, and away from a standard shift. Okay, let's go back and just sing the tune again. Now, that was a kind of weird feeling, wasn't it? Yeah. Where did that vibrate?
On the high part?
Yeah.
It was like up in here.
It just jumped there all by itself. You didn't make it. Whereas before, he got this thing down here, and he was going to shove that thing up through his nose if he had to. Okay, try it again. Now, sing the tune until you come to that spot.
Well, it's early Sunday morning, and the sun is coming up.
Now, hang on. That's already a big improvement, isn't it? Part of it, he's not as nervous as he was the first time. So he's able to back off a little bit. But his voice is a whole lot more friendly, isn't it? Okay, good.
I'm headed for the golf course, ready to try my luck.
Good. Easy shift, wasn't it?
You alley man, the corner girl, come back, do, side do. Left alley man, the corner dollar, weave around the ring.
And you'd hear that if he were to do that all night, it wouldn't strain his voice. Whereas if he were doing it the other way, by 45 minutes into the dance, if he did that very many times, his voice would be kind of tired. Now let's see if the same thing will work for Jeanette. You go ahead and have a seat, Jeff. Okay, we're going to do just like we did with Jeff. You're going to buzz your lips. Okay. It shifts, doesn't it? Really, the human voice is divided up into two registers. There's a high voice and a low voice, and that's what we've been hearing with these folks. When you get a little more sophisticated, it's possible to overlap the high and the low and come up with a mixing middle, and lots of us do have that mixing quality in our voices, and that's perfectly okay. But when we back off to this simple drill, we basically end up with a high voice and a low voice. And learning to transition between them is the secret to having good, healthy success as a singer. You hear it? There's a high part of that, and there's a low part of it. Now, do the lip buzz on the tune. Hear it?
Oh, that's trouble now. No.
That's all she did. Just those two pitches. Just do that. Now, Saturday night.
Saturday night.
It's different, isn't it? It's not as successful. Go back to the lip buzz. Again. Just string them all together. She's trying to articulate each of the notes. Saturday night.
Saturday night.
You'll notice that as soon as she opens to the real words, the quality changes. Go back to the buzzing. What's it feel like? Where does it vibrate?
Still I'm down here somewhere.
Yeah. That's where it should be. But should it be not that in that same place when you open up and sing it too? So if you get Saturday, no, it's too high for me. Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Yeah, but you don't have to do anything. Just keep the stream of air going as the same as you would have if you were still having your lips buzz.
Saturday night.
You getting there?
Saturday night.
Good. Now go Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Let's do it together. Now you heard that one pop up there. What I'm really doing is taking her one note higher than she has to, because that word night sits right on that break point, and she's having a hard time negotiating it. But if we go Saturday night.
Saturday night.
You heard it. That felt different, didn't it? Yeah. It didn't catch in your throat so much. It jumped up into your face somehow. At least that's what Jeff was saying it felt like. One more time. That was real clear. You could hear it jump up there.
Saturday night.
Yeah, night was exact. It's a different feeling, isn't it? Now, Saturday night, it should feel the same.
Saturday night.
That's right. Now she's not fighting that break point. She's taking advantage of it. Sing your tune now.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath.
You wait. You hear it already on splish splash. It's an easier sound. It's not driven so hard.
Along about Saturday night. Rubber dub, splashing in a tub. Thinking everything was all right.
That you didn't do that the last time. Thinking everything. It's easy, isn't it? Once you figure it out. Go ahead.
Four ladies promenade them inside a ring. Swing and then you will promenade. I said a splish splash, taking a bath. Oh.
She's actually in the shower right now.
Hold on a moment. Okay. Splish splash, I was taking a bath. How was I to know there was a party going on? Okay. Party going on?
Go on.
Oh. It's promenade and move it halfway around.
Hear it? She didn't do that before. She'd sort of take that thing and drive on it. This time it's just flipping on up there.
Down the middle square through go four. Go all the way and down, right and left through. Wheel after four, we wheeling down.
Da-da-da-dee-da-da-da-dum. What is the word?
Square through and travel, 3 hands round.
Okay, now when she says 3 hands round, she's not really hitting the pitch anymore. She sort of slipped back into the talk. That's because Jeanette's used to doing that. That's how she coped with this song before. But now you've got another choice, don't you? You can actually sing those notes. And I was eating with Jeanette the other day, and she was saying, well, you know, I got a limited range, and so I sing harmony notes, or I just talk some of those notes that are out of my range. God, does that sound like anybody else you know? When the truth is, all you got to do is learn how to shift those gears in your throat. There are 3 basic ones: low voice, middle mixing voice, and a high voice. And all of you in this room have access to 2 out of those 3. That means that you've got access to almost all of the square dance calling records that you want. However, if you really want to own all of them, you're going to need access to all 3 of those ranges. And a lot of women have access to the high and the middle and have trouble with the low. That's not true with square dance calling ladies. They're generally low and middle, and men are almost always low and middle and have trouble finding the high. But that's tough. I mean, that's just the way it is. And it's there for every single person. You just have to find it. One of the strategies is to reduce the pressure on your throat. Something like a lip trill or lip buzz. That tricks your vocal cords, because your lips are now doing the vibrating. The vocal cords say, oh, it's their job to contain the air. I can just kind of vibrate along here, minding my own business. And the next thing you know, you open up your mouth and the lips are no longer controlling it, and the vocal cords are going, oh, isn't this right? Wait a minute, I'm in charge here. And then they tighten up on you, and you sort of sneak up on them and trick them. Thank you, Jeanette. Okay, now we got, how are we doing on time? We're supposed to be down here at 3 o'clock-ish or so? Okay, so we got about 45 minutes. We got another set of folks that want to come up and sing. So let's get 1, 2, and then there was a third. This fellow was here earlier. And then if there's time, we'll take a next round out. Oh, no, I beg your pardon. You were here right off the bat. So we're gonna go 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll go to the next round.
Think they know this one? Because they sing along. Greg Anderson.
Okay.
Circle left, hello my honey, hello my baby, hello my ragtime gal. I'm in the corner, turn partner right now. Left out a man a corner, weave around the ring. If you refuse me, you're gonna lose me. Swing that girl in your promenade. Why, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your owner. Hello, hello, hello. Head start up in the middle, go one time around. Sing together right on us through and turn this girl. Swing through and then swing through again. Swing with that corner promenade. Why, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your owner. Hello, hello, hello.
Okay, Greg, that's great. Let's get the next person up. Now, I was just talking about people that have different kinds of ranges, and Greg definitely has access to the high part of his voice. How many of you stay away from that call because it's too high? You bet. But well, actually, the ability to get up in that range is not so much of a problem, but being able to stay up in there gets you a little bit of trouble. Okay, introduce yourself again to us.
All right, I'm Elmer Claycomb from Prescott Valley, Arizona. And there's a little story. It sort of goes with this. We were talking about it. I think he got everybody before and talked about it. About 18 years ago, I had quit calling and got myself completely committed to my business. And I had a consulting engineering business. Stress got to me so bad, I lost my voice. And what happened is I couldn't expel air when I was talking. Well, if you can't talk, you can't run meetings. You got to let other people do things. And what the doctor said, that was my body's reaction to make me back down. I found I could put on a square dance record, and I had my voice back immediately. So I started calling again, as much as anything. It's therapy. Work relatively well. Unfortunately, now calling has got to where it's sort of a business. I have no trouble in meetings talking. Every once in a while I'm calling, nothing will come out. So I want a little help on this. And I never know for sure when it's going to happen, although usually it's in a little bit more stressful situation, so it might happen here. We'll find out.
We can assist you in increase the stress level if you'd prefer.
Yeah, well, there's a number of people here who will do their best anyhow. And this record, the only reason I have it is my old one had so many scratches in it. It went to skipping, so I picked it up. It's the only one I got. Circle left. Way out here, they've got a name for rain and wind and fire. Left Alaman, you dos auto. Left Alaman, withering now. You weave it in and out until you meet your maid. Swing the girl and promenade. Oh, Mariah, blow your love to me. I need that gal beside me. Head couples promenade, halfway you go. Walk in a square through four hands now. Four hands around, you swing through and now. The boys run to the right in a Ferris wheel now. Why don't you square through three-quarters round? Swing the corner promenader. Oh, Mariah, blow your love to me. I need that gal beside me. Okay, we'll give a halt there. You want to come on out?
Okay, my name is Peggy Thompson from Carlsbad, California. Out in the country past the city limit sign, well, there's a honky-tonk by the county line. The joint starts jumping every night when the sun goes down. I'm a man left and weave. Get down, turn around, go to town, boot, scoot, and boogie. Get down, turn around, go to town, boot, scoot, and boogie. Head square through, four hands you know. Find a corner, do a do-sa-do. Swing through, boys run right, Ferris wheel, and a right and left through. Square through, go about three hands. Swinging promenade and do the boot, scoot, and boogie. Boot, scoot, and boogie.
Okay, Becky, let's start right there. And while you're there, you just kind of stay on. Would you say, actually, these folks that came up to sing all share some characteristics in common. First of all, they're not bad off. They're doing a pretty good job. Matter of fact, that's been true of everybody that stood up here. So, any suggestions that I make are not like, oh, boy, you better change that or you're going to lose your job. It's more a question of, well, you might want to consider doing this, that, or the other thing. Take the last phrase that you sing, Peggy. Boot, scoot, and boogie.
Boot, scoot, and boogie.
You hear that flip on your voice?
Boot,
boogie.
Scoot, and boogie.
It's down low, and then it jumps up into that middle part of her voice. And she goes up into that middle part of her voice fairly frequently in this tune, but every time she does, she's shy about it. Frankly, that's the same thing that happens to Elmer. Elmer has no trouble hitting the notes in Mariah at all, but the quality of his voice changes pretty substantially, and part of it is because he perceives his voice is supposed to be vibrating a certain way, and when it starts to vibrate another way, it makes him just a tad nervous. So the two of you share that same characteristic. Now let's go again. Could you start your tune one more time? Now, just by yourself.
Out in the country past the city limit sign.
Yeah, hear what happens to her when she goes to city limit sign. It doesn't feel as safe, does it? Out in the country past the... Then?
City limit sign.
You're kind of taking that first gear and driving it up a little ways. Go back and buzz that thing on your lips just a little bit. And this is very revealing because she thinks that she's got tight lips. Is her husband here?
My husband's long gone.
All right. Well, she can't get her lips to buzz regularly. And she'd think, well, that's something wrong with her embouchure here with her lips. It isn't. It's a problem with airstream, insufficient airflow. So do that same thing, and this time, make your air more. Enough so that you're... You see, right off the bat, do that again.
Lost it.
Yep. And you'll notice that particularly when she goes from a low note up to a high note, then she loses that buzzing quality. And till this very moment in time, Peggy had never given any realization of the fact that she actually changes her airstream as she goes higher in the range. That because she does so, the high notes are harder to sing. Now, you got that feeling what it feels like to have that lip buzzy? It's got a lot of air moving through it, doesn't it?
Yes.
Try it one more time with your buzzing lips. Now go ahead and sing it.
Out in the country past the city limit sign, well, there's a honky-tonk by the county line.
Do you hear any change in that quality at all? And if you do, what is it that you hear? Say somebody said fuller. Somebody else said something else. More projected was a gesture that came. Does that what it feels like to you?
Well, I think I did take a little...
There is more air going.
More air.
You betcha. But does it feel like the amount of change that you made, which wasn't very significant, was not hardly big enough to elicit that kind of a response. In other words, it's worth the investment is what I'm trying to get at. It's not a big deal to do, but it yields big results. Now, sing one more time.
Out in the country past the city limit sign, well, there's a honky-tonk by the county line. The joint starts jumping every night when the sun...
Wait a minute. It changed, didn't it? Starts to clamp down.
The joint starts jumping every night.
Now, that's different, isn't it? And people can hear that tension in your vocal cords. And we get that tension in our vocal cords when we're mad or when we're scared. And if your dancers hear that you're mad or scared, that's not a good sign. So even if you're mad or even if you're afraid, don't let it show in your voice. Keep that airstream going. Don't let your vocal cords tighten up because it communicates other things besides what you're trying to communicate. Pick it on up, will you?
Out in the country past the city limit sign, well, there's a honky-tonk by the county line. The joint starts jumping every night when the sun goes down.
You hear what she did there? And that she did it easy. It was no stress. First time up, of course, she was nervous, but the first time up, she wouldn't have chosen to do that little thing. She'd have steered clear of it because it would have made her voice feel crackly. Going on?
Get down, turn around, go to town, boot, scoot, and boogie.
Whoops, you hear what happens on the last...
I heard.
And you didn't even know it. Now you're starting to sensitize yourself to say, by golly, I do stop my air off. Boot scooting.
Boot, scoot, and boogie.
And again, you get to do that again.
Boot, scoot, and boogie.
That has now a different sensation to it. Peggy, you want to describe to the ladies in the crowd what it feels like when you get on the word gee, boogie?
Well, it's more a continuation than a choppy.
Now notice, when you sing boot scootin', where does it
boogie?
Where's boog? Where does that sound from? Where does it vibrate from?
Boog. Boog. I don't know.
Sure you do. Put your hand on your body where you feel the vibrations.
Boogie? I don't know. Boogie.
You feel it vibrating under your hand?
Boogie.
And when you get up to gee, it doesn't vibrate as hard.
Boogie. You're right.
No, it's shifted
Boogie.
here. And where is it? If it's not here, where is
Boogie.
it?
Oh, up here.
It moves up a little bit. And I bet you that it also comes right up here somewhere in the bones of your face. Boogie.
Boogie.
Right? Up
Boogie.
Up somewhere in the neighborhood.
Boogie.
Now keep your airstream going.
Boogie.
This
that
thing
was better.
Yes, you bet. Try it again.
Boogie.
Okay, now I'm going to change the key on you until it puts you a little more stress. Boogie.
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 She's stuck in that same key.
Am I not doing what you did?
I'm going higher in pitch. I'm trying to get you to explore what it feels like.
I'm trying to get there.
Boogie.
Boogie.
There you are, boogie.
Boogie.
Now where's it vibrating?
Oh, guys. Concentrating on one thing at a time. Boogie.
Where's
I did
gee?
it wrong.
Boogie.
Boogie.
Where does gee vibrate?
Right here.
Okay, you feel it there. You not feel anything up in the top of your face?
Boogie. No.
No, well, that's all right. Now go. Brrr. Get your ear going.
And don't laugh.
Okay, where's that vibrating? The higher part of it.
I couldn't find the key. Well,
Doesn't matter where she's not in any particular key right now,
no.
but she's in a range of her voice. And one of the definitions of a register for singing voice is that it's a group of notes that sounds the same because it's made the same, and incidentally, it feels the same. So once she gets up into that range, there are about 4, 5, or 6 notes right in consecutive order that all feel pretty much the same. And where a lot of folks have trouble, and I'm betting this is where Earl's coming from, is that you're not ready to acknowledge that there's a shift in gears and that second shift has a different sensation vibration to it. And so Earl and Peggy keep looking for that sensation that's riding up higher. They keep looking for it down low, and it adds strain to the tone.
so basically,
Now she's up in that higher place now.
when we start, we should make sure we get a sufficient breath and continue it through.
You betcha. That's really true. Instead of pounding and pushing on it. But then the second part of it is that you need to allow, when your voice wants to go up into that upper range because the notes go up that high, don't inhibit it. Let it go on and do it. It'll create a different sensation in your body. And where most people fail is that they think that change in sensation signals an error that they've made, and so they back off of it. Instead of celebrating the fact that you've gone on to, this is like being in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood and having permission to cross the street. You know, it's really good. Any way to get out of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
I find that a lot with the record I have, Amazing Grace, where I have to concentrate on relaxing and letting it out.
And airstream will help. We sing Amazing Grace, and you get up in that range. If you go Amazing Grace, how sweet thou art, where you take that lower position and drive it on up, it's not pleasant to listen to. Amazing Grace. It rides on up in there. And I'm not making that happen. I'm just getting out of the way and it'll do it, just like an automatic transmission. And you're the same as me. You just kind of let it be and acknowledge it and celebrate its change instead of being afraid of it because it's new. Okay, thank you, Peggy. You're up. Now sing a bunch of that, you know. Way out here, they got it. Is it about that key? Or was it a little lower?
Pick one, I'll do it.
Oh, that's a good key.
Well, way out here, they've got a name.
Wait a minute here. He gave me permission to choose the key. Way out here.
Oh, way out here, they've got a name for rain and wind and fire. The rain is Joe, the fire Tess, and they call the wind Mariah.
Okay, now he's got 2 ranges that he's showing, and a third one that's sort of right on the verge, right there on the high note. And I did that kind of meanly, but on purpose. Okay, so where does the first part vibrate? Away out here.
No, so I gotta remember where he's starting.
Away.
Oh, that's
A little
still.
lower.
Away out here,
Where's
they've
that
got
vibrate?
a name. That's all the way
Yeah,
up and down
way
here.
down here in his chest, right? Vibrating. Away out here, they got a name for wind and rain and fire. The rain is Tess.
Somebody.
The fire is
Joe,
and they.
call the
Now, where's that?
wind. Call.
Where's it vibrating? Okay, now we're gonna do a little lip buzzing on him. Sneak him up on this. Aha. That's a little different than what you were doing just a second ago. You kind of went up and buzzed on your nose a bit, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Tingled on it. Do that. Imitate that just by singing the song. Try to keep those same sensations.
And they call the wind Mariah.
Yeah, I thought that was really terrific. And he didn't really do anything except to acknowledge that it was okay for that change to occur. Men have a real hang-up with this. We figure if we allow our voices to inflect out of the basement that somehow we've lost all the testosterone in our lives. And it ain't so. Yeah, to allow your voice to inflect upwards is a good thing. It's an expressive thing. And yet we're so accustomed to those vibrations in the lower part of our chest and in the back of our throat And that's where our sense of manhood comes from, and has been that way ever since we were 12 or 13 years age. And so we just stay clear of the upper inflections in our voices. The truth of the matter is, you heard what happened when he let that inflection take place. It's just been sitting there for the last 25 years waiting for a chance to sing itself.
I wish it was only 25 years.
I was giving you the benefit of the doubt there. Okay, now let's go after that one more time, because you did a really good job, but maybe you did it by accident.
And they call the wind Mariah.
Now go into the chorus.
Mariah, Mariah, they call the wind Mariah.
And all of a sudden, instead of feeling down here in his chest and in the back of his mouth, it's now starting to push up on the bones of his face a little bit. Why? Not because he's really pushing it there, just because his throat is open and he's got enough energy so that the sounds, they'll just go there. They just do that. That's the way the human voice is made, unless you get in the way to inhibit it. And you saw how we did it. We've done the same thing with several folks. Just by taking some little trick, like a little buzzy lips or a trilling tongue, something to distract the body, then this little changing valve that's down here in your throat box, in the larynx, it'll just do it. Unless you stand in its way of doing it, it'll choose to make that. Okay, so there was another thing that happened, and I'm going to just allude to it, although he's already got the problem solved. And that is, when a guy sings deep, or a woman, for that matter, sings really deep, the sounds linger in the back of your mouth and the upper part of your throat. You have your inner ear, the eustachian tube, connects right back up above there and leads up to the inside of your ear. And if you get used to listening to yourself through your inner ear, you will always hold that sound back in that dark place and never allow it to migrate up into that front place. Because to your inner ear, it sounds terrific. And to everybody else, it stinks. To everybody else, it sounds all muffled up. As soon as it gets out where everybody else says, yes, that's great, your inner ear goes, ew, I don't like that. It's not finished yet. It's not big and full. It sounds wimpy and small, and my wife will think that I'm not a man anymore. It ain't so. So just prove that to yourself. Now, you'll be singing along here. When he first sang, he was a little bit embarrassed and a little bit nervous. So he was holding the sound back inside. When he went up, Mariah, Mariah, he spun way off of it, and it was hanging it back up in his inner ear. His inner ear was saying, yeah. We were saying, wimpy, wimpy, wimpy. And now he's got this sound out there where we're going, woo, I don't want to arm wrestle that dude. And he's thinking, God, this sounds so shallow. And that's tough. That's just the way reality is. So go after it one more time.
Mariah, Mariah, they call the wind Mariah.
I think that's real nice, don't y'all? Okay, thank you very much. One of the things that Earl didn't talk about, we didn't get around to sorry.
I've been trying to change to Earl for a while.
No, one of the things Elmer didn't talk about, or he'd mentioned it, but we're going to touch on it, and that is, he said that he had trouble with, he just flat out lost his voice for a while, and then he got it back through singing, and now lately, as he's been doing more calling, the stress comes back into his life, and it starts to create trouble for him. There is a pattern in the human body, leftover anthropologists say from before we were humans, where the voice box was not used for communication, it was used as a sphincter muscle. Sphincter muscle clamps closed. You take a good breath, and then you clamp your vocal box closed, and now your lungs are full of air, compressed air, that gives your torso solid rigidity, strength, so that you can fight, or run, or climb a tree, or lift a heavy object, or some such thing as that. And that sphincter action is sort of embedded in us, sort of like a cat landing on its feet when you drop it off of a building. If you don't know how to have it, that's just what's there. And part of what's got to be learned in singing is to not engage that sphincter muscle, to get strength in your support, get strength in your breathing, vigorousness in the way that you say your words, but somehow keep that thing from clamping down closed the way it supposedly was when we were all subhuman. Now, why that's so is anybody's guess. Maybe the anthropologists have some truth there. But there are lots and lots of people who have learned how to be able to go, ah! Lots of vigorous energy. It's engaged as if I were going to clamp my voice closed. I'm going to lift a heavy object. But here in the vocal valve, I still remember to keep it loose. La, la. And you get a lot of noise, but it's no strain to the throat. But if you're not careful, then you'll think about that, and this thing will clamp on you. And it'll clamp in threatening environments. It'll have a tendency to clamp when you're nervous, when you're feeling threatened, or something like that. And then you just go back and say, easy, boy, easy. Open up, relax, slide, easy. And get a lot of stream of air going. And when that happens, you can sort of train yourself out of that thing. People that suffer from anxiety, they've related anxiety to the breathing rate. They'll take a person who's perfectly calm and say, speed your breathing up. And pretty soon he's going, I'm nervous. Or, by the same token, they'll take somebody who's really nervous and has got a fast, shallow breathing pattern, and they'll say, breathe deep, slow down, get lots of oxygen. And before you know it, all the signs and symptoms of stress are gone away. It's very much related to conditioning. And so in that circumstance, Elmer or anybody else who's got trouble with that thing clamping down on them has a strategy. And the strategy is to stay easy, stay loose, and don't give in to that sphincter activity. Okay, now, there's somebody else out there in this group of three? Oh, yeah, you were up here and we haven't talked to you yet. Ha, ha, ha. Now, just a minute. It's been too long ago. I don't remember. The Greg.
Good.
Okay. Now, Greg is one of those guys that has easy access to the top of his voice with no stress. But you say that you feel stress.
Well, I'm not sure it's stress always. Sometimes, I try to concentrate on every word so I can hit the high ones. And I don't guess I worry about it when the voice does crack on me sometimes. Paul Harvey's voice cracks on him sometimes. So what? But that's true.
That's right.
But I do think about it, and I don't know that I worry about it, but if I'm going to have I can have trouble, especially on that song, with those last high ones.
Well, we're going to do it again here in just a second, but I'm noticing something in his speaking voice. Can you hear something in his speaking voice? As he's talking along, there's a little gravelly quality that creeps in there. You know what that gravelly quality comes from?
No, it's not.
No, he's got his underwear's 3 sizes too small. No, that's not it at all. What is it? It is exactly that. It is airstream. That fry quality is a dead giveaway that there's not enough air moving through your throat. So in your speaking patterns, you have a tendency to move toward what's called pressing phonation or muscle-controlled, that tight sphincter valve. And you can get away with it for a while. Now let me ask you a question. In a dance, are you likely to put this in an early tip or a late tip?
Later in the evening.
Okay, that's actually a good sign. Because if you were to press on this valve tight too many times early in the evening, then the top voice would go away after a while if you didn't have enough breath stream on it. Have you ever experienced that, where you got it early in the night and then it goes away as the night wears along? Or do you usually warm into it?
Well, one thing I think that relates to what you're saying is...
Now, wait a minute. You're going to do that with a little breath flowing through your voice now? About 25 or 30% more
About
breath.
25 or 30% more. It's still there.
Yeah.
But I have noticed when I call a regular dance...
Now you're hearing it? Now it's going away.
My voice doesn't tire as much as when we do our one-nighter parties where there's more vocal command and less singing. And my voice is more likely to tire out during the evening doing those in the early parts of the evening.
Sure, and the reason for that is if you're doing it with more muscle and less airstream, every time you pound on that, like as giving in a command, every time you lean on that, it just adds a little bit more stress to the vocal cords vibrating together.
I suspect, too, that the difficulty for me has been learning how to, on the one hand, I want to be able to carry a note or a line or 2 lines or 3 lines as long as I can without taking a breath, and whether that has conditioned me to cut down on the airstream to try to get it to last longer between breaths, then I've probably overly compensated.
That's right. You just described it really well. You value a lot being able to stretch across several phrases, but you want to be able to do that without dropping below that minimum level. That principle I've been talking to you about is called the Bernoulli principle, and it has to have a minimum threshold in order for it to function. And if you drop below that threshold and still expect a clear tone, you're going to have to compensate by tightening up your vocal valve. Tightening up the vocal valve causes additional stress over the time, and it doesn't sound as attractive. So you can do what you're doing, but you may not want to go as far down the road toward saving your breath as you're currently doing. Now sing the tune one more time, and let a generous amount of breath go through.
Hello, my honey. Hello, my baby. Hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss by wire. Baby, my heart's on fire.
You had a moment right there on the word heart where you got a little nervous. And that's that flip spot. And where you were doing it before, you got up in there, but you didn't allow it to flip. You kind of drove on it a little bit. Baby, my heart's on fire.
Baby, my heart, that's not the wrong key.
Baby, my heart's
on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you'll lose me.
Every time he says, if you refuse me, if you listen really carefully, that's right on that dividing line, and it's, if you refuse me, and it just flips back and forth. But he's doing it so smoothly that unless you're really listening for it, you wouldn't pay a bit of mind to it. Go. If you refuse me, honey, you'll lose me. What is the next line here? Send me a kiss by wire. You want to do that again?
Yes, I would really like to do that again. Preferably tomorrow.
I dare you to do that exactly the same way twice in a row.
I couldn't possibly. I've already forgotten what it was.
Send me a kiss by wire.
It's always hard to pick it up in the middle, isn't it? If you refuse me, honey, you'll lose me. Then you'll be all alone. And I'm looking for you to go on up. What's coming up next? You got the words in your head, or have they gone away? They've sort of gone away. Yeah. Let me get the list.
All right.
Good thing this doesn't happen during a dance too often. Oh, that's it. If you refuse me, you're gonna lose me. Swing your own and promenade. That's because that wasn't in the original song. If you refuse me, you're gonna lose me. Swing your own and promenade. Ah, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own. Ain't gonna happen. I'm getting so wrapped in the earlier part, okay. If you refuse me, you're gonna lose me. Swing your own and promenade. Why, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own. Hello, hello, hello.
Now, I heard that thing lift up on the last, hello, 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 and it jumped right on up there as easy as you please. Now, Greg's got an interesting challenge. Remember earlier I was saying to you that most people either have the high in the middle or the low in the middle, but rarely all three? Well, he's got the high down top real good, and he's got the middle down. But the hardest note in this whole thing, ba-da-da-dee-da.
Always. It gets real gravelly on anything that's got a low note.
But you know what? You cut your airstream off right at that moment, and you go back into that kind of pressing sound. If you were able to go... Wait, now he's cheating. Let's get it back down where it belongs.
Too high, didn't I?
I think I pitched that wrong, didn't I?
What's that?
You hear he's having a hard time keeping his lips buzzing. That's the dead giveaway. I got to pitch in a different place because it's too low. Can you find that? If you refuse me, if higher, higher. There you are.
If you refuse me, honey, you'll lose me. Then you'll be left alone.
Now he just kind of flipped down in there. We cheated because we raised the pitch just a tad. But it doesn't really matter. You could feel it shift gears down there. And once you shift it on one pitch, you can shift it on a whole bunch more after that. It's just learning how to shift the gears. That's all it really boils down to. Do it again now, this time buzzing your lip.
Run out of breath.
Yeah, take a good breath and pick up right there. Okay. Now do this for me. We won't have to do this on mic. Hang on. Sounds like a drone of B-47s, doesn't it? I've got him sitting right on that break point. He doesn't want to have to hunt in that range. Okay, we'll take that spot. No, you're going to have to drop down into your lower voice. Okay, actually, what we're not being successful right now, but you can see that what I was talking about is directly applicable here. That he's got accents to the high and to the middle, but finding his way into that bottom one is a bit of a mystery. He's done it 2 or 3 times, but it was more by accident than anything else, wasn't it?
What is it about if I do...
Now he's in his low voice.
What is it about if I do 2 nights in a row, the second night I'm more apt to be able to hit the lower notes?
That's actually not a good sign.
Oh, boy.
What it means is that you're pushing on your voice a little bit and you get a little swelling in your vocal cords, so they're thicker and therefore they pitch themselves a little lower the second night. That's probably what's going on. So the issue for you almost as much, and he's one of the best singers we've had up here this afternoon, got lots of capabilities, but he's doing it by pressing on his voice just ever so slightly enough so that there are little symptoms that are creeping up. One of the symptoms is that the second night his voice is heavier than the first night. And if he was going on, if you do 3 nights in a row, you rarely do that? Okay. But if you were to do that, if Greg were in that position where he had to move from calling twice a week to calling 6 times a week, he would have to make some adjustments or he'd gradually find his voice tiring out. See, too much right on the vocal cords and not enough on the airstream. So I think you got some solutions there. Now, is your wife here today? No. Oh, rats. I was hoping to get another set of ears. Anybody here that's sort of in your neighborhood? Okay. Well, you're sort of hearing what's going on there, and vice versa. If you guys can kind of key off of each other and just say, hey, come on, Greg, just chill out. Just keep the stream of air going. Now go back and do your tune one more time, then we'll stop on it. Ba-da-dee-da-dum.
Hello, my honey.
Hang
Hello.
on just a second. Now, what I'm going to get you to do is to intentionally make sure you got about 25, 30% more air than you're accustomed to using.
Hello, my honey. Hello, my baby. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Now, wait, you hear that?
Started to lose it. I was on the borderline again.
Not just that, but you started to clamp down. And just keep that stream constant. Hello.
Hello, my ragtime gal.
Now, go back to the beginning again. Hello, my
honey. Hello, my baby. Hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss by wire. Baby, my heart's on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you'll lose me. Then you'll be left alone.
Left alone. You going to stay up?
Left alone.
There, he made it.
Left alone.
Whoops. Now he's starting to press on it. Left alone. It's just keeping the stream going instead of clamping it off. Left alone. Got it. You feel it flips down there and all of a sudden it starts to vibrate somewhere down in here. And normally he stays clear of that range. That's an unfamiliar territory to him. And he says, oh, I don't want to go down there because I don't know exactly what's going to come out. But if he'd spent some time with that, he'd get down there and say, oh, shoot, that's no harder than turning left at the corner. Okay? Good. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I blabbed on a little bit too long here. I'm mighty sorry for that. There's a comment or question here. Go. Hang on.
You know, many of us in square dancing aren't singers. We don't come into it as singers. A lot of us don't leave it as singers. But some of us do have a real restricted vocal range, whether it's the way we're built or the way we practice or whatever. What could you recommend for those of us to expand on that range?
Most of what we've been doing here for the last hour and a half has to do with range extension. We talked about the natural tendency of your voice to have gear shifts. And those of you that are suffering from a limited range, your voice isn't limited. Your understanding of how to change gears is all that's limited. So one of the things you can do are these little lip burrs because it takes pressure off your throat some. And don't be afraid to go on up into what you would consider to be a falsetto range when you're doing it. Would your lips stop buzzing? Let's put that to the test. Come on up here, Bob. This is tough. See, when you get that little lip buzz, all of a sudden the pressure goes off your throat, and it'll change some gears that it would otherwise be inhibited to do. It's a surprise, though, to discover, by golly, it's just sitting there waiting to be used. Yeah, well, you could. It takes some drill. But the second thing I was going to say, you can get out of the lip buzzy kinds of things and just start finding speech range. Talk down here. That's the way most men talk. When they get excited, they talk up in here, like when they're watching football. Then they start talking in here. When the football team is losing, then they start talking up in here. And we have all of those speech inflections in our voice. We just don't use them very often. And then when something really bad happens, we get really crazy and we go on up in another range. We don't use it very often. We have access to those ranges under the right kind of circumstances. So, finding them in speech, sha, ha, 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 ha. You just hunt around, and lo and behold, they pop up there. Then after you find them, you glide between them. Ah, ah. Silly noises. Nobody likes them. Who cares? They're just an exercise to get you to the point. Nobody likes doing sit-ups, for heaven's sakes, but anybody that wants to have a flat tummy does them.
What's the normal octave range in an average person?
Normally, a human voice has 3 octaves of range. Most of you find yourselves limited to about half of that. It's just because you don't explore the rest of it. From the very highest to the high to the lowest of the low is usually, for most people, 3 octaves. Good people who develop their voices generally have 2 octaves or slightly more than 2 octaves of usable range, with some notes on the very top and some notes on the very bottom that they can make sounds with, but they're not proud of, so they don't show them in public.
How do you know when the sound you're making is abusing your vocal cords?
This will be where I'll close today. Going back to the definition of good singing. Good singing is something that doesn't hurt when you do it. It also is something you can do a lot without tiring. And that means today and tomorrow and the next day. And it means now and 20 minutes from now and 30 minutes from now and an hour from now or an hour and a half from now. And the third one is that when other people are listening to it, they like it. That's it. So the answer to your question is, how do you know if you're hurting your voice? If it feels worse tomorrow than it felt today, then you're not doing something right. If you use your voice vigorously today and it feels more healthy tomorrow, you're doing something right. It's really that simple. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've taken more than my time. Thank you all very much.